For some parents, a discussion with their children about money can be as uncomfortable as the one about the birds and the bees. But financial experts agree you should start talking early and often. About money, that is. Here with more is WSJ's Veronica Dagher and Ted Beck from the National Endowment for Financial Education. Welcome to both of you. Veronica, I'm going to start with you. In your reporting, did you find that most financial experts are more or less on the same page when it comes to teaching our children about money?
Yes, absolutely. They said have the conversation. You alluded to it before. The biggest mistake people make is not having the conversation, not saying anything. And if you do that, you leave it up to the culture to determine what your kids know about money.
You've already got a head start if you start early. So Ted, what do you believe are the key financial skills we should impart before they leave us for college? Because really that's the time we've got with them, right?
Yes, but hopefully you started a lot earlier than that, because the parental discussion needs to really start very early on when they're very small. And that leads up to when they're starting to become independent and go away for the first time for that college experience. And this is not a single discussion. This is a series of discussions. And please avoid lectures. That's a great way to have a kid turn off, even with their parents, because we do see in all of our research that parents are the single most positive influence on young people who are demonstrating sound, positive behavior.
So, Veronica, I said start early. What does that mean? Toddler age? I mean, how do we talk to a toddler about money?
One of our experts said as soon as they can say, I want, that's when you start talking to them. So as early as 6, if they're wanting something, you can say, well, you can have this now, but later you'll have something else because we only have a certain amount of money. So, and then as they get older, you can give them an allowance and talk them through that. So you want to calibrate it to their age in terms of the information you share with them.
And their math skills, right? And they've got to be able to add a little bit. So, but Ted, is there an ideal tone to these conversations? You said we shouldn't lecture. So do we keep it light and humorous or serious? What's the tone?
Well, frequency and don't overdo it, I think, are two key things to remember. This is not, I'm going to sit you down and teach you all of life skills in an hour. This is something you reinforce constantly. And it's not only telling a young child that we can't afford that right now, avoid the impulse buys when you're at a grocery store. But I think a great tool is to say, if you're looking through a catalog, say, gee, I'd like this. And show your child and say, I like this, but I can't afford this right now. So you know what? I'm going to save my money so I can get that in the future. It's not just their behavior, but demonstrate your own. It does register.
So savings, things we can afford, Veronica, but how far beyond that do we have to go? Do we have to teach them about credit and mortgages and all the rest of it?
Down the road, especially if they're about to go to college, you want to give them a very good idea about credit and how putting a lot of money on your credit card could damage your credit later on if you don't pay that off. So again, it depends on their age. You want to teach them in day-to-day life too. So if you're going to go to the ATM, for example, explain that this money doesn't just come from the cloud, that you worked for this money. You want to teach them basic budgeting skills no matter what age they are, because that's going to help them down the road.
So a trip to the ATM is a great teachable moment. What are some other teachable moments that you would recommend us seizing on?
Well, and Ted mentioned the grocery store. So if you go to the grocery store and your child says, I want 5 of this, well, you can explain we've got a budget for our groceries today. It's $100. If we buy 5 cereal boxes, for example, I'm not going to have the money to buy the meat. And so teach them about trade-offs. That's another way to do that.
Trade-offs and budgeting, all things that we constantly need reminders about. So Ted, are there resources that you recommend for parents?
Well, I think it's a great resource. The Jumpstart Coalition actually does a series of standards that kindergartners and 4th graders should know. So if you just Google Jumpstart National Standards, it's a nonprofit organization. They're not going to sell you anything, but they give you a great series of areas of what a child should know at different stages at kindergarten, 4th grade, 8th grade, and at the end of high school. So if you're wondering about specifics, that's a good place to start. We're not trying to teach people how to run investment portfolios. We're really just giving them those, as Veronica said, those basic skills so they can make positive decisions.
All right. So, Veronica, how much can we rely on schools to teach our kids any of this?
Well, you know, schools play a part, but not every school has a program. And the most impactful way to teach your kids is, like Ted said, is that day-to-day lessons. Not all schools are teaching it effectively either. So you can't just rely on your child's school to teach those lessons. You have to take them in hand, model the behavior you want to see, and then teach them as they grow up.
It's up to us as parents. Veronica Dagher, Ted Beck, thanks to both of you for being with us.